Maariv, an Israeli newspaper, said that Israel is capable of disrupting operations, interfering with them, and delaying them inside of Iran, but it cannot destroy Iran. Even the Americans, with all their arsenal, know that it's impossible to subdue such a country from the air. This is a regional empire, and history shows how complex it can be. Regardless of whether you honestly believe the United States is serious about these negotiations taking place in Oman with the Iranians, personally, I don't think they're serious. Personally, I don't think that Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff are to be trusted, right? I think that they have one agenda on their minds, and that agenda is how do we get to the war as quickly as possible, right? If you still believe that, though, here is the truth of the matter. Israel, 100%, is dedicated entirely right now to the sole aim of war against Iran, and they are using and fomenting all of the pressure that they can on the United States to get to this war as quickly as possible, okay? The Iranians do understand that, though. That is why all branches of Iran's military have entered a maximum state of alert. I saw this shared on social media, on Telegram, on Twitter the other day. This was pretty interesting. The Iranian state TV came out and said that they did plan an unveiling of a new missile city in Iran, but have canceled this program for security reasons. Finally, they seem to be taking their security, their OPSEC, a little bit more seriously. I mean, I never really understood the whole idea of like doing these giant, video displays of their underground missile cities. I'm like, don't you want to keep that a secret? Wouldn't you rather keep that a secret? Because anytime they say, oh, we have a new underground missile city, I mean, it just gives the United States and the Israelis like the opportunity to tap whoever they have in Iran and say, hey, find out where that is. We didn't know about that. Do we know where that is? Double check. Make sure we know where that is. Does what we saw in the video line up with what we, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm smarter than the Iranian intelligence and the Iranian Ministry of Defense and whatnot. But, the fact that they did not air this missile city does kind of indicate that maybe there is a risk, and they were fine to take that risk as a means of deterrence to say, hey, look, don't go to war with us. Look at what we have. It's a bet. There's pluses, there minuses to this. I guess the conclusion that they've come to each and every time, though, has been it is better to show our massive, ballistic missile technologies that we have at our disposal, because this is a means of deterrence against the West and against Israel. Personally, I believe everyone kind of gets the point now after the 12-day war. Everyone understands what's happening. Now, let's take a look at this, because Marco Rubio has confirmed that the Iran talks were just to protect Israel. It was never about the Iranians. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says, we will not sign any nuclear agreement with Iran that does not include limiting the range of its ballistic missiles so that they can no longer threaten Israel. Well, they've got more than enough missiles to target Israel. They have the capability and range to do it. And they've got plenty of allies all across the region, which could do the same. Obviously, Hezbollah and Lebanon have the capacity to do that. They still have tons of missiles, tons of drones. You look at the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, Kataib Hezbollah, Nujaba, they've all got the, clear capability of doing this. They even unveiled, Kataib Hezbollah, they unveiled a new video this week which shows that they possess a Fatah 1 hypersonic missile, okay? So they have the capability. Iraq, Lebanon, Iran, they've all got the possibility to do this. Even Ansar Allah in Yemen has the possibility to do that, and they are very far down, right? They're all the way down below Saudi Arabia at the Bab el-Mandab Strait in Sana'a, and they have the capability to do it. So plenty of countries have the capability to do this. Deal with Iran limiting the scope of their missile program is not going to limit a threat for Israel, okay? Maariv, an Israeli newspaper, said that Israel is capable of disrupting operations, interfering with them and delaying them inside of Iran, but it cannot destroy Iran. Even the Americans, with all their arsenal, know that it's impossible to subdue such a country from the air. This is a regional empire, and history shows how complex it can be. So if even Israeli media is admitting the truth that Iran cannot be defeated, why is it then that Netanyahu is demanding that they engage in some sort of a war? The simple answer is because they are delusional. And we'll get to more about that in a second. I mean, it's quite obvious that they're delusional, but how delusional is the question? The Israeli Security and Political Cabinet meeting to discuss tensions with Iran has been moved up to Thursday instead of Sunday. This means tomorrow there will be 2 meetings for Netanyahu about Iran. And what did they discuss? Israel Hayom reports that Northern Command warns Hezbollah would likely join the fight if the U.S. strikes Iran. Just a few hours later, what did we see? Jolani Ahmed al-Shara, a.k.a. in Syria, the Syrian president, promises revenge on Hezbollah at a closed-door meeting, according to Al-Akbar. Now it's Hezbollah's turn, and we will not forget our revenge. So the moment that Netanyahu starts screeching about Hezbollah joining in a conflict with the Iranians against Israel, which, by the way, the Iranians have not indicated that that is what they want, that they have called upon this. They have not done any of that. But they're saying in Israel that this is what's going to happen, which I hesitate to believe that because it didn't happen during the 12-day war. At the same time that they're saying that, Jolani comes out immediately and says that he's going to take revenge on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Coincidence? I think not. Okay. In addition to that, Netanyahu said Israel is prepared to carry out a very severe strike against Iran far beyond the previous 12-day war. He added that he does not know what Trump will ultimately decide, but confirmed the two sides are in very close contact at all levels. Of course, the IDF even sent their military officials to demand that we strike Iran on January 14th. Okay, that time came and passed. Royal Intel posts this, said, if Hezbollah enters the battle in solidarity with Iran, Israeli ally and Syrian leader Ahmed al-Shara will begin border attacks on Lebanon. He is currently awaiting orders from Mossad. Remember this post. I also encourage you to remember this post. Now, the reason why I said, let's talk about how insane and delusional the Israelis are and how committed they are to war against Iran is quite simple. The entire premise of Israeli statehood and Israeli defense policy is to say that they are the eternal victims. That, Iran. Well, what happens if Iran is gone? Well, then we have to go after Turkey. What if Turkey's gone? Then we have to go after Pakistan. Well, what if Pakistan is gone? Well, then we have to look towards, North Africa or the Horn of Africa, right? And as if it couldn't get any more insane than saying, Israel needs to go after Turkey and Pakistan now, we are now seeing reports that Netanyahu is worried about the U.S. vassal of Egypt. Benjamin Netanyahu now has problems with Egypt. Netanyahu, during the Security Cabinet meeting, said the Egyptian army is growing stronger, and we must monitor it closely and prevent its excessive strengthening. That's how the U.S. gets forced into a war with Iran, right? The art of the deal, I think it's called. The art of the deal is basically, hardball negotiations, right? If you want to look at the Iran negotiations as hardball negotiations, it's quite simple. The U.S. said, we need you to give up your enrichment, your ballistic missiles, and regional support for your allies, and also we'll have the nuclear talks. And that or nothing. And the Iranians are like, no. The U.S. said, okay, no nuclear talks. And then 2 hours later, the U.S. comes back and says, okay, whatever, we'll just do the nuclear talks and we'll do it on Oman, right? They were hoping they could get the Iranians to agree to these other ludicrous principles of negotiation, right? Demands, dictates is a better way of putting it. Same could be said about what Netanyahu is effectively doing, except he actually believes this. Netanyahu says, yeah, Iran, of course, they're a threat. We need to go to war against them. Of course. But Mr. Trump, there's also Egypt. We need to go to war against them, and Turkey and Pakistan, and we need to conquer Somaliland and Sudan. And, list goes on and on and on and on to the point where war against Iran doesn't sound like all that big of a deal because, oh, Netanyahu's got this grand plan for all this stuff. Just Iran, I mean, okay, Netanyahu, forget about Turkey, forget about Egypt, forget about Sudan, Somaliland, forget about Pakistan. Okay, we'll do the Iran thing, right? Part of the deal. Insane. I'm sure Netanyahu actually believes this stuff, but to actually believe that the U.S. vassal state of Egypt, the British U.S. vassal state of Egypt, is somehow a threat to Israel is ludicrous. But he's saying it. The question is why? I've got my theories. But clearly, they are very, very invested in making sure that war with Iran begins pronto. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.